So, you'll have to excuse me squinting because I look like I'm angry or something when I'm scowling. It's just there's a big glass wall there with a lot of sunlight coming through, so I actually feel like there's a giant spotlight or something. So please excuse me squinting, but it's very bright in here. I can hardly see the screen actually. It's just like light coming through. So we have, what's this? Day 3, I guess, isn't it? Third part of the Qigong Deviations. Someone says, where are you now? Thailand. I'm actually at the top of a mountain, I guess. I think I'm at the very top. Yeah, that's the top of the straight line. Yeah, right at the top of a mountain in Thailand. So this room is like a sauna. It's a big glass room with a sauna, so I'm just going to gradually lose fluids. I might lose about a sort of several kilos in weight by the end of this video as well. It's a bit torturous. Lots of yang, yeah, a little bit. All right, so I think what we'll do before we go into the lessons, which for today will be Chu Pian. I didn't do Chu Pian last time. I forgot until right at the end. Obviously, that's quite a major one. So that's a literal reversal within one of the channels. I need to look at that. I know I looked at heat rising and things like this, but I want to cover a specific reversal within a channel. That's an obvious one. So I think we'll start with a little bit of practice before we go into some theory. Just a little revision from last time, a tiny bit. So a little bit of seated work. So you want to find somewhere that you're comfortable. Somewhere that's not like a sauna, perhaps. I'll give you a minute all to just shuffle around. Let you move about a bit. Okay, everyone sorted? Just change this view a minute. Okay, so spine upright. As per usual, just settling into our positions. You know what to do by now. Arms can just rest on the knees, in the lap, or if you're a slob like me, just draped casually over the legs. I don't really mind, whatever you prefer. And then we're just going to begin by lightly closing the eyes. Just anchoring the breath as per usual. Giving your attention to the breath and the body, just letting it all settle, anchor and slow down a bit. And I'll just come back to you in a few minutes and adjust what we're doing. Okay. Then change to reverse abdominal breathing, as we usually do. So begin to close the abdominal cavity on the inhalation in a three-dimensional spherical fashion. Then as you breathe out, just let it relax. Relax back to normal, back to neutral. It's just a few minutes reverse breathing. Okay. Then just bring the mind, like we did before, to the surface of the skin. Because we're going to start this vacuum packing practice. So if you're comfortable with this process already, then just bring the mind out to the skin and already just start to mentally connect it to the reverse abdominal breathing. So I draw that space close, everything tightens a little bit. The skin just shrink wraps. As I breathe out, I just let it relax. Then bring the arms up to the height of the diaphragm. We're not stretched, just relaxed palms. Just relaxed, facing down. See, my hands are soft, not collapsed, but not stretched, just soft. Facing down. First of all, just breathing for a second. Reverse breathing still. Okay, then we're just going to settle the Jing a little bit before we move on to looking at the new condition. So I'm going to breathe in. As I breathe out, I want to direct the breath down as if I'm blowing on this fire down to the base of the body. Just trying to gently warm the embers of the fire. So I breathe in. As I breathe out, direct the breath down, inside through the middle of the body. Gentle but lengthy exhalation down towards the perineum, towards the base of the body. Then gently bring the hands down to Taiji Mudra, clasping the left thumb in the right hand or vice versa if it's more comfortable. Just resting it in the lap. Just let the breath and the mind anchor low to the dantian. Okay, so then just taking a few deep breaths, stretching the lungs. It's just a short practice before we start. And rub the hands. I've got too many cushions here, I think. Can't get round, but if you can, massage the kidneys. Yep. One. Second time. Third time. Then the eyes. Temples, behind ears, and down the neck. And just twist the spine a little bit, side to side. For me, it really is like wringing out a sponge today. Sat in a puddle of sweat, and then just turn the head side to side. I don't know what the temperature is in here, but it's inhumane. And then ear to ear, just shoulder to shoulder, sorry, just roll. Okay. So, let's change the view a second. Put a movie on the screen. So now we need to look at Chupianya, this idea of a reversal. So essentially, a Chupianya, a reversal of Qi. Can you hear me okay? Is that all right sound-wise? Is that okay? It's a little bit echoey in here. Does that still make it hearable by you? That doesn't come across, does it? You can hear okay? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's just a bit of a strange sound in here. So Chupian, the Qi reversal, I probably should have, after the heat rising is the most common one, isn't it? Like that's the most common condition people will get with Qigong, where something is going wrong. It's also, I think, probably the most common thing people get energetically full stop with stress or anxiety or tension or over concentration anyway. It's a very common pattern within people in general. But then the next common condition within Qigong is Chupian. So really, I should have done it the other way around. This should have been session 2 really, shouldn't it? Before I did poison, fire, influence in the heart, I think probably I should have done Chupian. So sometimes you'll see Qigong Chupian, or Qigong reversal, or sometimes it's called Qigong Qian Pa as well. It just different schools, different regions, they call it different things. But ultimately it's just a reversal. Sometimes you'll see it discussed a bit like I said with walking the fire to invite demons, as people will discuss it as if it's just a generic condition. So sometimes you'll see Chupian written as if all Qigong problems all fall under the same category, under this heading. But again, that's not true. It's a slight misunderstanding because, I'm just going to let someone in a minute. Bing, there we go. It's a slight misunderstanding because just like the other conditions, it has its own qualities, its own distinct qualities. We can't really say that all conditions are Chupian. And again, I want to highlight that because there's everything from some Qigong books that say this through to some I don't know for the life of me what kind of degree it is people are doing, because it wasn't a Chinese medicine one. When I looked it up, it was a PhD paper in Qi Gong Deviations. What course that is, I've got no idea, but it sounds like a fun course. But it was, once again, their whole paper was based on the idea that Chupian was an overriding term. So their PhD was based on this, but it was incorrect. It was fundamentally flawed because it's a particular kind of condition that people suffer from. So it is what it sounds like. It means the Qi has reversed directional flow within one of the channels. That's ultimately what it means. It's reversed directional flow within one of the channels. And that can happen in a few key places, because you have the surface channels, the ones nearer the surface of the body, and we need to break those down because there's different types. And then we have the interior of the body, and there's some channels that affect males more strongly, and then there's some channels that affect females more strongly, more likely to get this condition arise in different ways. Yeah. So first of all, the surface of the body, the outside of the body, the surface channels. So these would be the ones that people generally associate with the organs. Yeah. So the lung, the large intestine, stomach, spleen, so on and so on. Okay. The 12 channels that people generally discuss within Chinese medicine, within acupuncture, within shiatsu, within the majority of Chinese medical books that you see. Yeah. But we need to differentiate between the different layers of these channels, because I think Chinese medicine people should be familiar with this, but maybe sometimes people who aren't Chinese medicine people aren't so familiar with this. That when we talk about a channel and its pathway, it's really comprised of, we can say, 3 main components. So every one of your meridians, every one of your channels has 3 main components to it. And depending on which component within that channel is influenced, it's going to change the nature of the Qi deviation, even within advanced, not beginner, but definitely advanced Chinese medical practice, advanced acupuncture. We do differentiate between these 3 layers of the channels as well, the 3 different types. Not the kind of stuff, when you normally first qualify and you're doing a degree in Chinese medicine, don't normally cover this. It normally comes a bit later. So these three components are the pathway through which the qi flows, which normally we would associate with the primary channel, So the pathway of the qi. Then we have the pathway where the blood flows, called the shuamai, that runs alongside and intertwined with it. Now, the qi and the blood having these pathways that run alongside each other can sound a little peculiar, because in Chinese medicine, when we talk about the qi that's in blood, we talk about something called yin, which means nutritive or energizing, if you want, quality of qi. And this qi is in the blood, essentially. So it's the component of your body, the aspect of your body where the blood carries the qi to nourish the body. So that qi is in the blood. Does that make sense? You can understand that okay, if you're not a Chinese medical practitioner? It's in the blood, right? So the blood is going to carry that energy ultimately to the cells. That's what it's going to do. Now, there's another aspect to the qi within the channels that doesn't flow in the blood, but flows alongside the blood. And this qi flows in a more conventional line that you would see mapped out in Chinese medicine. Now, it's a curious transformation in Chinese medicine that really came from TCM as much as anything, because TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, as many of you probably know, was invented ultimately by the Communist Party, or under direction by the Communist Party in the 1950s and 60s, I believe, to try to standardize Chinese medicine. And part of what they did was they wanted to align Chinese medical thought with Western scientific thought so that it appeared less superstitious to the outside world. So if you are going for a TCM treatment, or you are practicing TCM, you're ultimately practicing a form of Chinese medicine that has been modified to make it more acceptable to the wider world. Okay, so traditional Chinese medicine comes from the flower power era, comes from the 1960s, and maybe a little bit earlier than that. It's not that old a system, TCM. It's based on old ideas, but it's been modified. So one of the modifications that they made in TCM, and it's funny because there's a little bit of a contradiction, is they say that the qi flows in the blood, that the yin flows in the blood. Okay, the yin qi is what transfers with the blood through the body. So by doing that, what they're doing is they're aligning, as far as I can see, they're aligning Chinese medicine with Western medicine by ultimately talking about the energy contained within the blood and the hemoglobin and things like this, right? So they're trying to align the two systems together. But the contradiction in Chinese medicine, of course, exists because they still map the meridians out as lines that follow these points, right? So they still map out lung 1, lung 2, lung 3, lung 4, lung 5, lung down to lung 11, and so on and so on. But of course the blood doesn't flow like that. The blood flows through capillaries all over the place, so it's got a much wider reach. It goes right out into all the tissues, into all the cells. So how many of you have tried the Heavenly Streams practice? Have you given it a go? Particularly with the lung channel. It's in the library, right? I know some of you like it, some of you not so keen, because it might make some of your channels feel a bit horrible when you try it. But if you go particularly to the lung channel, what you can feel very clearly is a long line. Lung channel is always very easy to feel, and you can also feel the split that happens at lung 7 as it goes into the large intestine channel. That's, for a lot of people, that's quite clear. You feel this kind of fork of lightning that runs in that line. Now, obviously, that line that you're feeling is not the qi that flows in the blood, right? That's a little different, isn't it? Because you're feeling a much more linear pattern of qi that is not within the capillaries. So we can't really call that the yin qi. That is not the yin qi. That is something else. That is simply the qi of the channel. Do you understand the difference? Yeah? So we have qi that flows within the primary channel, then we have the blood that flows around it, if you like. Think of it like wrapping around that channel and flowing through the body. Now the third component is the sinew channel, which is the connective tissue that runs in the same pathway as all of that. So essentially the sinew channels along here actually runs the other way. Sinew channels always run towards the center of the body, but the sinew channel runs as connective tissue along the same line as the channel. So this would be this would be the sinew channel of the lung coming up here. Okay, and then it continues into the center of the body. So the easiest way that I've managed to explain the sinew channels to people before, because they can be a bit confusing, is simply say to think of them as the riverbed through which the river flows. It's the container through which the channel flows. I've got the physical tissue, and then contained within that physical tissue would then be the channel of qi, and then also the capillaries that are carrying the blood. Yeah? Got all that? 3 components to a channel. Now we want to understand the difference between these because ultimately the symptoms that appear on somebody will vary depending upon which one of those 3 the reversal is. Okay, which one of those 3 the reversal is in is going to change the symptoms. So there are specific symptoms for if the reversal is affecting the sinew channel. There's a specific symptom for if the reversal is affecting the primary channel. There's a specific set of symptoms for if it's affecting the blood. Yeah, so we can do a differential diagnosis between them. If we wanted to take it further, which I won't in this, there are then different symptoms if it's affecting things called the Jingbi, the divergence, and the law collaterals, but they don't matter right now. With regards to Chinese medicine, that does matter. With regards to Qigong, you're going to see the reversal in one of those 3, the Qi, the blood, or the sinew. That's where you're going to see it. Is that too complicated or okay? It's early in the morning for some of you. Brits. Do your brains work yet, Europeans? You're okay. Don't know, not sure. Looking out from under a quilt, under a pillow there. Okay, so if there is a blockage or a reversal, just in general, on the level of the sinew channel, it will cause pain. It will cause pain. So if you feel any pain, it is in the sinew channel. And that is the same for Chinese medicine as well. So if somebody has stagnation, discomfort in this area, it's in the sinew channel. That is what it's going to feel like. It will either be normally, it's a little different from Chinese medicine now, but in Qigong it'll be throbbing and bruise-like. Throbbing and bruise-like normally means a little bit of a deficiency or a problem in that with the Qi of the channel, and it's influencing or manifesting in the level of the sinews. Okay? Or it'll be sharp, like a stabbing point, and that's the relationship between the blood and the sinew channel. But still, if you feel that pain, it's in the sinew channel, because the primary channel cannot feel pain. It can't feel pain. Only the sinew channel can feel pain. If it's in the primary channel, in the Qi, then what it will do is it will feel of a thermal property, a temperature change. Okay, that's what it will feel like. The primary channels elementally are connected to the element of fire, according to the 5 elements. Do you know the channel connections and the elements? Do you know these? Sinew channels, wood element. Sinew channels, wood element. Primary channels, fire element, related to fire. Yeah, so thermal properties, temperature things are felt there. If you want the others, law, connecting channels, that's earth element. Collaterals, Jingbi, that's metal element. And the congenital channels, or the 8 extraordinary channels as they're sometimes called, are the water element. So each one of these 5 channel systems relates to these elements, and this tells us a little bit about the symptoms that arise in each of these channels. So if it's in the level of the primary channel, it'll be a thermal property, a thermal change. Yeah. So this means if you suddenly feel hot or you feel cold, then that is a primary channel disturbance. Okay. If there is pain and heat, that would be sinew channel and primary channel, right? Both affected at the same time. Okay. If there is a reversal on the level of blood, it will often result in numbness or a lack of sensation all of a sudden, just gone to sleep. It's like that limb's just gone to sleep, yeah? Often there will be pain as well, meaning that there is a stagnation at the level of the sinew channel, but the blood blockage, which is the rarest, the blood blockage is the rarest. And the blood blockage means that you lose sensation down the length of that channel and it can go numb. Just like if you sort of lay on your leg at a peculiar angle or whatever, or you're meditating, I suppose, and you get up and walk away and then you've lost feeling in one of your legs or something. That would be a reversal in the blood channel. Now in Qigong, if there is a reversal in the sinew channel, there will also be tremors, the same as wind symptoms for someone who's a Chinese medicine practitioner. There will be tremors, shaking. Okay, it's going to tremor or spasming in the channel, yeah? If there is a blockage on the level of blood, it's a problem. That's a big deal within Qigong reversals, but it's very, very rare. It's not common for that to be the case. Yeah? If there is a reversal on the level of the Qi, then often it will come with other symptoms. Okay, so other bodily symptoms will arise, such as the headaches that we talked about before, or nausea, vomiting, anything, loose bowels, like whatever. If you think about the Qi essentially is the extension of the organ system, and you can think of the Qi being like the controller for the organs. So if I tap sort of lung 5 and then I tap lung 3, I'm sending different instructions. It's like I'm hitting different keys to send that instruction back to the lungs. Yeah. So if I put a needle into lung 5, I'm creating a specific effect for the lungs. So if I get a reversal at the level of Qi, then I will get other symptoms arising. Yeah, that's what will happen. It's like the body's just, somebody's in the back end tapping all the key codes and creating random responses. Understand that so far? Okay? Yeah? So, let's do the one we can't do anything about, which is the blood reversal. Ultimately, if there's a reversal on the blood, this is so rare. It's not the same as blood stasis or blood stagnation in Chinese medicine, which is actually okay. We can sort that out, no worries. We can move the blood, build the blood, no problem. But a blood blockage is an issue. Okay? If there is a blood blockage, then the person has to stop practicing immediately and they will need to seek assistance from somebody. Yeah, they will need to seek assistance from a medical practitioner to help sort that out straight away. But it is incredibly rare. If somebody continues to push through a blood reversal or a blood blockage, which I have to say, in 15 years of teaching, I've had one person ever who's had this, like a reversal on the level of the blood, a problem on the level 1. So that's not many. If you've ever seen the size of my courses, I've taught a lot of people, one person. So it's pretty rare. Do not mistake it for blood stagnation or blood stasis in Chinese medicine. It's a very specific thing. And if a person carries on pushing through it, then the blood gets reversed and sent back towards the heart or the pericardium or the brain, which can lead to a mass developing. Yeah, the same as you would expect with a blood clot or something building in someone's body. But before it leads to that, they will have all sorts of negative symptoms, because if the blood is blocked and not flowing to a region of the body, then they're going to lose sensation and have numbness and hold part, not just a little bit, not like, oh, my arm's gone to sleep, like it'll stay. And then they'll start getting lots of different pains all over the body, and then it will become very, very uncomfortable. So it's a very, very clear thing when there is a blood reversal. Yeah. So we can almost forget that one because of its rarity ultimately. Second one, with regards to the Qi, if there is a reversal in the Qi, what are you going to get? Men, always the same, acid reflux, nausea, and inability to swallow. The symptoms we talked about before, that's always where it hits them. It can hit women too. I'm not saying it's only men, it can hit women too, but it's definitely more common in men. That acid reflux, kind of nausea, everything coming up into the throat. And you'll hear people, have you ever heard people in a Qigong class? I know some of you have been in ones with me where people have had something going on with their digestive system, and you can hear it kind of go blub, blub, like inside their body while they're standing, blub, like something's kind of moving around inside, and the people next to them in the class just sort of edge away, like a meter away, because they don't know if they're going to vomit or something like that. Those kind of things, that would be a very mild reversal. It's not really a big problem. Often somebody who started Qigong has that reversal anyway, and it's just a process working through it. But obviously it becomes more of an issue if it's just continuous. You know what I mean? If it's week after week after week, now we have a reversal. So that reversal we'll need dealing with, and ultimately it means that the Qi is coming up here, which needs to go down, really simply. Yeah. So even some of the exercise we've already looked at last weekend will help with this anyway. Anything that descends and brings down for this condition. With regards to women, it's more common for it to be in the Chongmai. It's more common for it to be in the Chongmai. Males can get this too, but it's just more common. You know, maybe 80-20, 70-30, women rather than men. Reversal in the Chongmai is more common for women because of its connection to the uterus and to the blood, which supports the menstrual blood as well. So one of the names for the Chongmai is the Sea of Blood, and that's specifically relevant for women. Yeah. So really with males, it's a bit of a controversial view. I think you can almost ignore the Chongmai and ignore the Renmai as a Chinese medical practitioner for males in the majority of cases. It's a bit like trying to put a nail in with a wet sponge or something. It's just the wrong tool for the job. It's not going to work. We just don't really connect to those channels particularly strongly. Perhaps the exceptions for males, if you're a Chinese medical practitioner, might be Ren 6, which is quite tonifying, or Ren 12, which is harmonizing. But other than that, I don't think Ren channel is particularly great for males. But for women, it works exceptionally well, because ultimately the Ren channel is the uterus channel. That's what it is. And the Chongmai, they just didn't name it, but they should have done. And the Chongmai is your blood channel, ultimately. That's what it is, okay? And because women have a greater affinity to, and dare I say, subject to the difficulties of the blood more than males are, then Chongmai is going to have a stronger impact upon them. So if there is a reversal in the Chongmai, I've forgotten the name for it. Something like, it's either Li Ji or Li Zi, I can't remember. I'll find it for you. I'll find it for you by the next class. There's a particular name for the condition, unless one of you knows already, in which case feel free to type it in here, when there's a reversal in the Chongmai. And it creates anxiety, is the first thing. Creates anxiety, but it comes with the sensation of something moving rapidly through the middle of the body. It's like something skittering or running up through the body and like kind of surges while they're standing. Okay, so they'll feel it running around inside. Excuse me, let's get some water. So it's a very strong sensation. It's not necessarily an uncomfortable sensation. It's just like something bubbling up that goes all the way up through the body, and then you get kind of anxiety attacks at the top. So those, I guess, are the two main ones that you see between males and females. Okay with those ones? They make sense, okay? Easy enough? Yeah, cool. Does anyone know the name for that condition? I've forgotten. So many Chinese terms running around in my head. If you remember, do write it down there. Otherwise, I'll find it for you later. It'll be in my notes on my phone somewhere. And then what do we have? Sinew channels. Oh, yeah. So when the sinew channel has a reversal, first of all, there's discomfort. Do I worry about that? No. I almost always expect most Qigong practitioners to have discomfort when they start. That's going to be normal. And as you know, I just advise you, you don't want it in your joints. Definitely not. That means a physical problem with your joints, and we don't want to trash those because we want you to be able to function on a physical level. And I don't like physical pain in the brain. That's no good. You don't want something in that space in the skull cavity. You want the brain left alone. So those sharp stabbing, like ice cream pains, brain freeze in the brain, that would be an error. We don't want that. That's not great. And we don't want stabbing pains in the heart. Obviously, that's not awesome if you get that, especially if it radiates down the left arm. That might indicate that you might need some medical assistance. So those are the kind of pains that I would be alarmed with, which are joint pains aren't that unusual, aren't they? Because people need to learn how to work with their bodies a little bit. But pain and brain are pretty rare, so we don't worry about those too much. It's one of those courses where everything just sounds terrifying, right? It's like you have to talk about all the the worst case scenarios, but do remember the worst case scenarios are pretty rare. They're not really anything that you're going to see too often. Okay, so pain in the sinews, if it's bruised or achy, doesn't matter. Honestly, it doesn't matter. It will come and it will go. That's simply tension and adhesions undoing within the sinew channels. It's no problem. Those sort of bruises that appear and those deep bruises in your body that just kind of pop up, but they should come and go. So if something persists more than a short period of time, you can ask me what that period of time is now, aren't you? I foresee that question. If it's in a class, I wouldn't be surprised for people to have it once or twice. You know what I mean? If they come along and there's a bit of a bruising in their shoulder and they have it once, twice, 3 times, I wouldn't worry. But if it's persisting over a number of weeks, then there's probably something more problematic in that area. Okay, something that needs dealing with. Again, with a bruise sensation, it's not the end of the world, it's not life-threatening. So that's where your partnership with a local acupuncturist or Chinese medical practitioner can be super helpful, because they might just need someone to have a look and just double check there's nothing that needs releasing or letting go of, or some cupping. Just kind of take it out or whatever, just get things moving and make their bodies comfortable. Or alternatively, Qigong and especially Dao Yins will loosen them up after a while anyway, especially Dao Yins. I mean, that just does all sorts of things to the body, doesn't it? That causes pain if nothing else. But once you get through that, it'll just open the body up. Sharp stabbing pains can appear in the sinews, and people will get those, and they'll come and go as well, like a flash, just pain, like a random one, and you hear people just go, like just shout out loud with alarm. But the funny thing is, by the time they finish shouting, the pain's often gone. It's very peculiar. It's just like a little flash of kind of a block or stagnation that's there that then comes and goes. So generally when people get those kind of little flashes, something is just changing. If you're a teacher, just get them to sit down and drink warm water. Did I emphasize warm water to you enough last time? I don't think I did I? Warm water is a godsend. Don't put tea in it. Tea ruins water, just in general, in my opinion, but that's because I'm a Chinese cultural heathen as much as anything. No, but what I mean is, as soon as you put tea into the water, what you're doing is you're giving it a medical instruction, right? So if I put something in the water, it's telling it to go to this particular order, or go this organ, or go to this particular channel, or go to this particular place, right? So teas can have these qualities to them, just like herbs. But if I just have warm water in general, it doesn't have an instruction. It's like neutral. It's plain flavored crisps, if you like. I'm just drinking that water, and it just breaks up the stagnation in the body. So if the person just drinks warm water, lets it move through the body, and then goes take a rest and move around, most stagnation that comes up of that sort will just break up fairly quickly anyway. Yeah, nice and easy. Then what are we talking about? Help me out. Sinew channels. That's the one, isn't it? Now we're talking about sinew channels. So then we have sinew channels, that symptom that arises, which is the tremor, yeah, the shake, little vibration. So sometimes people have that anyway. Do you know anyone with that, or have you seen people with that, like a little nervous tick? It's really common here in the jaw muscles. Have you ever noticed people have that, like a little sort of tremor in the jaw muscles? Or maybe it's elsewhere on the body, but you can see their face quite often. I've got a couple of friends who have that kind of tremor. In fact, if I was a better friend, I'd have used Chinese medicine to take care of it for them, wouldn't I? Instead of just acknowledging they have that tremor. But there you go. I'll sort that. I'll fix that for them. Or sometimes you see a little tremor above the eyebrow or something that just kind of twitches, almost like a little nervous twitch. So in Chinese medicine, we talk about this being a kind of wind that's trapped in the channel, ultimately. There's other things too, but generally they're talking about being wind that's trapped in the channel. So do you understand wind? Do you know what this is? Did I talk about wind last time with you on the last weekend? That's a problem.
Do you want to take some questions on the previous things you said?
Oh, I can do. I'm being interrupted. I will take some questions. All right. They want me to do some questions, and then I'll come back to it. Okay, so far? Does this all make sense? Easy enough? Excellent. Good. Then we'll do tremors. Talk about wind. Tremors is that movie with underground worms. Have you seen that? It's one of my favourite movies as a kid, Tremors. That's what I always think of when I see that in books. It's probably really bad now because it was like the 80s or early 90s, I don't know. What am I on about? Here we are. Chupian. Adrian's put Chupian. Yeah, he's put the spelling down for you. Thanks, Adrian. Min says, pretty sure there are multiple ways of Romanizing Chinese. Oh, right, he's talking about the spelling. Yep, that's how I spell it. That's true. Does blood reversal mean the blood flow literally reverses, or does this mean something different in Chinese medicine? And if so, can it be treated with Western medicine as well? Seems like the sort of thing that disciplines specialize in. Yeah, it's a funny thing, blood reversal. A blood reversal, it does literally refer to the blood going the wrong way. Now the literality, that's the word, isn't it, of this, who knows? I'm not a Western biologist by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly what it manifests as is at a higher point in the channel. So say the reversal was here in the arm, which would be an unusual place to have it actually, but pretend it's here in the arm, and I've got a blood blockage here and a reversal. What it means is that further up the channel, this would be bad if it was here, but all right, I've chosen a terrible example. It means that the blood will actually build and coagulate. It will stagnate. So this is why they call it reversal. It's further up the channel. So then what happens is if somebody is bloodlet, for example, they make a small, not on the neck, small laceration or something, the blood will actually come out like jelly. It will come out thick. So it actually builds. So what it turns into essentially is a very dangerous obstruction in the cardiovascular system. Now you'll see people do this sometimes. There's some YouTube videos of people kind of doing it as if it's a very mystical thing. They'll blood cup, and then this kind of stagnation will come out, and they'll say it's a very special form of medicine. But actually that's not true. It will happen with any wet cupping, which is cupping with a laceration or perforation, so the blood comes out. Anywhere there has been a blood reversal, you will get this kind of jelly-like substance come out. So this is what a blood reversal is. It's not that common in Qigong. It tends to be looked for, talking about a specialism here. Sorry, I'm off topic here. I'm on Chinese medicine. I hope this is okay, just answering the questions. But essentially, there are specialisms in some forms of Chinese medicine, yeah, where they'll look for these blood reversals, these kind of blood clots that build in people. But usually they are people that are suffering with tumours and serious heart problems and cancers anyway, so it's a very specialized form of Chinese medicine generally. So don't worry, you don't need to be familiar with that as a Qigong practitioner if that's what you are, or even as an acupuncturist or herbalist, really, I don't think, because I think as an acupuncturist or herbalist or Tuinao practitioner, you're kind of general, or we're kind of general. It's not that specialized, is it? I think because you look at all of the syndromes of the body, and sometimes people will specialize in something like fertility. That's quite a common one, isn't it? Or musculoskeletal is a fairly common one for people to specialize in. But once you start getting a look at kind of blood reversals and oncology and things like that, that's a very specialized form of medicine. So most Chinese medicine people wouldn't be that familiar with it. I wouldn't expect you to know tons about that as a Qigong practitioner, so don't worry about that. Chong Ni Chang Ni, oh yeah, Li Ji. It was Ji, not Ji. Yeah, that's right. Li Ji was the term I was looking for. She has the Chinese characters there. Thank you. Steve, it sounds like running piglet Qi, Benton Qi, but maybe that's a more mundane version of the same sensation. Yes, not quite the same as running piglet Qi. Running piglet Qi is like a weird, fast disturbance within the center of the body, isn't it, that moves. This is more like pulses, the way people have described it to me. But running piglet Qi, I guess, would be related because essentially it's from that deficiency that disturbs the Qi in the middle. But yeah, as you say, I would say running piglet Qi, which if you haven't heard of, that's a great sounding illness, isn't it? Running piglet Qi. It's not as serious as a reversal in the Chongmai, and it sounds cooler, doesn't it? It says, when you say warm water, what temperature are we talking about? Oh, I don't know. Lukewarm or more on the hot side? Well, it doesn't want to be uncomfortable. If you're blistered for a month afterwards, it was too hot, definitely. No, it just wants to be warm, comfortably warm. Yeah, comfortably warm. I guess just like how you would take your tea, usually. But I don't know about the exact temperature. Yeah, but reversal in Ren, Du, or central channels. Yeah, it is possible. A reversal in the Du channel, but they don't normally come from, they don't normally arise as a result of Qigong, really. A reversal in the Du channel is usually more to somebody that's got a very critical deficiency more than anything else. So it's not something I would expect much from Qigong. If anything from Qigong, you're more likely to get an excess in the Du channel, to be honest, more thrusting up the Du channel than a reversal. A reversal in the Ren channel can happen for males, and it can happen for females too. It can happen, yeah. It's going to be people that usually that play around with orbits with a little bit of force, but again, I don't see it as, it's not that much of an issue. It's easy to fix. And the central channel would be the one I was just talking about, whether specifically in women where you get that anxiety and that sensation of something moving up through the body. Can you see how wet I am sat here? Does it not show on the camera? I may as well just had a bucket of water just poured over my head. There's no air conditioning in this building, so it's like a greenhouse. But I quite like it, actually. If one, for whatever reason, circulates the microcosmic orbit in reverse, up the Ren and down the Du, would that increase the risk of this condition? Yes, if it's deliberately done. Because the other direction in the microcosmic orbit, apart from in very advanced levels, should happen naturally. And for women, it will switch around and happen on its own anyway. So we never force that. I don't agree with people trying to deliberately do that, because yes, it can reverse that condition, reverse those channels. For that matter, is there any reason the Du tends to be opened before the Ren? Yeah, because the Ren's really hard to open. That's the main reason. It's just really difficult, and the Du channel's a lot easier. So it doesn't matter what we do, the tendency will be the Du channel will open first. The Ren channel's an absolute nightmare to fully open. It's a pain in the butt channel, that Ren channel. So yeah, that's why the Du do happens first. Even if you were to do the same amount of work on both, the do channel will open first, guaranteed. There's probably a couple of exceptions, but the majority of cases. Oh, we've got some long ones here. Okay, I'll read it out. I apologise to everyone. Yes, no problem. This is a long question because I have to explain the background. That's okay. 1. For 30 years, I did the microcosmic orbit using intention and visualization and without having first built the Dantian. I now understand that's a really bad idea. Well, my personal opinion was that yes, it would be the wrong way to work, but also not necessarily life-threatening, so don't worry too much. For about as long, I've sometimes seen colour at the edge of my shadow in certain lighting conditions, like direct sun high in the sky. Okay, I never thought much of it, just figured I could see my aura, so what? I like the blasé attitude, but that's cool, yeah. Then I learned in Philosophical Art of Change about guardian Qi and realised what I see around the shadow is tight against my skin, so it could be that. Yeah, that's possible. Wei Qi is, if it is visible to people, it's very near to the surface of the skin and generally a light grey in colour, almost like a diffusion of the shadow itself. If there is a colour within it, then actually that's not necessarily the Wei Qi. And if there is a colour within it, what you're generally seeing is close to the skin is the expression of the quality of the Qi within the primary channels. Yeah. So sort of halfway between an aura and the Wei Qi, I guess. Mantek Chia's microcosmic orbit diagram show orange yang Qi up the back governing channel and blue yin going down the conception channel. I'll take your words on that because I don't know much about what he does. What I see is the opposite: blue on back and left, orange on front and right. Since paying attention the past year after starting with Damo, it's been always the same consistently. So finally the question, could what I'm seeing be diagnostic of Qi reversal in the Ren and Du channels? For your information, I'm in a rural US area and there's no decent acupuncturist within hours. Yeah, America's so big. Before I went to America, I thought you all had everything on hand all around you. Then I drove out to the boondocks and I realized some of you are like totally isolated out there, which are very cool areas. I quite like those rural areas in America. Orange yang Qi going up the back and blue yin going down the front. No, not necessarily. The colors aren't necessarily a reversal because colors mean different things anyway. I mean, curiously, not that I want to go into it too much, but when you're looking at the colors that exist within the energy body, you're actually seeing the opposite color of what's on the color spectrum, curiously. Your eyes will perceive the opposite of what's actually there. It's a very odd aspect of the way that we perceive within the energetic realm once you get to that stage. And the colors all have different indication. They mean different things to do with the health of channels in their area, but they're not necessarily, you couldn't spot a reversal from that. So no, I wouldn't say necessarily, Deborah, that it's a reversal. I wouldn't worry about that. Reversals would be diagnosed more from the symptoms that arise more than the colors. But it sounds like you've got a good connection to your visual faculties, so that's good. Hope I answered that okay. What would you say about people who circulate the microcosmic orbit with intention and or visualization but end up with the same results one is supposed to? Can think of at least one author who's described electric energy rising up and the saliva turning sweet even though their method seems totally wrong. Well, the problem with those methods is they carry risk and they also carry the potential for delusion. But if somebody can navigate the risk and navigate the delusion, then I would say that it's possible that they could get to that stage, so that's fine. But then the other thing as well is you have to remember that something with a microcosmic orbit, like the electricity and the saliva, I'll take the other questions after I finish the lecture if any more pop up, if that's all right. The thing you have to remember about the electricity running through the nervous system and the saliva that runs down through the body, the sweet saliva, is that's only the first stage of the microcosmic orbit, right? Like it's a very early stage of it. There are more and more and more and more. Ultimately, it's a very, very deep practice, just like everything is. Just like the Dantian has multiple stages. The putting of the Qi into the abdomen is only one stage of the Dantian. Like that, once that's done, there's more. Why? Because it's Chinese arts. There's always bloody more, isn't there? They just liked detail. So it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So with forced methods, having practiced some of them myself for different things, you can get to a certain stage, but you will glass ceiling because you can only, the rule is kind of, you can only add so much, but you can naturally unfold infinitely, if that makes sense. So if I learn how to use the attention rather than intention and initiate that process and then absorb into it, the potential to keep developing is limitless. Whereas if I use intention or I create or I add, you will max out and you will stop. You will get to a point that you cannot go past. So it will create a plateau within your practice. And that plateau might be soon, that plateau might be late, but it will stop. It's the equivalent of internal versus external force, because external force kind of has a maximum limit. It will get to a point and it will stop, because you can only get so big. And all right, that limit might be quite high, and fair enough, you could also take growth hormones and steroids and it could be incredibly high, but at some point it's going to max out. There's a point you can't go past. But internal force builds more slowly, which is why most people with internal force in martial arts have less strength than people with external force, definitely weaker. But that's because of how slow and painstakingly annoying, I slipped that word in, painstakingly slow it is to build this internal force. But if you can get to the stage where it levels with external force, it can then go further, and it doesn't really have a limitation. You'd be quite surprised what can happen at the higher levels, higher than I'm at, because you can keep going and keep going and keep going. Now the reason is external force is based upon addition. I am adding muscle, adding contraction, rebuilding tissues, rebuilding power, which is fine, great for your health, awesome, but it will stop. Well, you can go too far. If you can't turn your head, that's not great for your health, is it, if your neck's that big? But generally, it can be good for your health and you can build it, but internal force is not. It's based upon something else. It's based on release and letting go of those things that are in the way of the internal force arising, and that's why it doesn't have the same glass ceiling. Does that make sense, okay? Do you understand that? So that applies ultimately with almost all internal practices as well. Imagination and visualization cap at a certain stage. Now for some people that cap might be far enough. That's all they want. If they just want good health, maybe that they can do that. If they just want to relax, they can do that. If they want to open this thing, they can do that. But if somebody wants to go as deep and as far as they can into these paths, ultimately that practice is going to get in the way, okay? Because it's going to glass ceiling, because it's based on addition. Yeah, so hopefully that explains it. Oh, that's my take on it anyway. As far as I've seen, almost every practice is enhanced by, once the ball is rolling, simply applying stabilized attention to it. That's really what it comes down to. Stabilized attention onto a process that's unfolding. So you initiate it and then you just give it your attention and it will grow and grow and grow. You'll be quite surprised. And the more I apply that attention and then just release, the deeper and deeper that process goes. I mean, even to the extent of, if I'm building the Dantian and I've had a really good session for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, don't carry on. That's my advice, don't carry on. If you've just hit like, whoa, that's the best I've ever done with my Dantian development in those 10 minutes, then stop, sit, and just absorb your attention into the body, into that part of the body wherever you're having that experience of what's happening, and just sit for an hour. That's the rest of your practice. That's your practice session. The work at the beginning initiated it, and then just give it your attention and just keep letting go, letting go, letting go, and it will just unravel for you and it will take you past those glass ceilings. Yeah. So, what are we talking about? Oh yeah, Qi Pian. Let's go back to that, and I'll take any more questions afterwards. Giant worms under the floor, right? Tremors. You'll love that film. Go look it up. It's terrible. So tremors in Chinese medicine are generally related to wind. Okay, and are you sure I didn't tell you what wind was last time? I don't want to repeat myself. Did I do wind? No, didn't. Okay. So I thought I did. If I start to repeat myself, let me know. Essentially, wind means a change of pressure and temperature in the air on your skin. Yeah, that's what it is. So wind is not a problem, really. It's the change of wind that is the problem. It's the switch of wind. It's when it changes. And you can feel it, right? When wind is blowing on you, the reason you can feel it is because there's differentiation, isn't it? Here's wind and less wind, on and off, and it's blowing, okay? Now, your body is really simply designed to deal with the outside environment in essentially one of two different ways, I think we could say, which is to close the pores and to tighten the body, or to open the pores to release the body. Essentially, that's what the body is doing. It's opening and closing. The old name for them is the Gui Men, the ghost gates, and ultimately what they mean is the pores that exist all over your skin. So if it is hot, like it is right now, my pores are incredibly open. So right now I'm sweating and the body is actually quite relaxed, a little bit slack. It would be hard for me to tighten my body up because it's just releasing, okay, to vent that heat. If it is cold, the opposite happens, doesn't it? Your pores close up and everything tightens up and everything constricts and everything becomes like, you try touching your toes in Hawaii compared to touching your toes in Greenland in the middle of their winter. There's a very different experience, right? Because everything, your body just changes according to that temperature, that quality on the outside. Now that happens naturally just so that human beings can interact and integrate with our planet ultimately, so we can function as best as we can. But wind is a problem, because what wind is a sudden change on the surface of the skin that the body can't deal with. So all of a sudden it's cold, then it's hot, then it's cold, then it's hot, then it's pressure, then there's no pressure, no pressure, like because the wind is changing, right, on the surface of the skin. So consequently what happens is your pores get confused. So you almost get like a stuttering, like the tissues do this, they go on and off. Do you understand that? Almost like anti-slip brakes and ABS brakes. Have you ever driven with anti-slip brakes and you put them on in an icy country, they go, they judder in order for you not to skid on the ice. And the same happens here because it can't understand what's going on. So if that wind then enters in, okay, they say in Chinese medicine the wind enters the channels. What they actually mean is the sinews, because of a weakness in the mechanism of the sinews, they've got stuck in that pattern. So you end up with a tremor. Does that make sense? Do you understand that? Yeah? Now the problem with that is wind will then transform into another condition. So the result is that tremor will send an instruction through the sinew and then into the primary, where it will generate more heat, or it will generate cold, or it will start to transform the quality of the fluids. So then you get a problem starting to arise in the body. Now that's external wind. That's what's going on. Your anti-slip brakes on the skin can't cope with the change of pressure on the level of the surface of your body. So it changes that tremor in the body, switching on and off. Now, internally, it's a little different, because what it means is when the qi, but the same mechanism is there, when the qi is reversed and it goes back up through the sinew, then it sets off the same mechanism, because that instruction with your body to open up or close is confused. It gets damaged, so it doesn't understand. So consequently, you get that tremor in the tissues. Now obviously that's a Chinese medical way of understanding it, but that's because how we treat it ultimately when we expel the wind is the points we tend to use are also good at relaxing and releasing the sinews at the same time. There's a relationship between the two, because the sinew points are resetting that on and off of the sinew channel. Again, that's what's enabling that quality that we call wind to leave the body. So I'm telling you that because Chinese medical practitioners, that's how you would treat someone with a qi reversal that's arisen from Qigong that's creating tremors. You would treat it in the same way. You wouldn't nourish the blood internally necessarily. You would seek to release the sinews to change that mechanism back to get the wind out of the channel. Now, when that vibration or that tremor goes into the channel, I would consider that a minor reversal. It's nothing, like it's not a big problem. It's a minor reversal. It's okay. But it can go to a next step, which is ultimately not that different from Zhefagong, really. Zhefagong, spontaneous movement. So what it creates is uncontrolled spontaneous movement that arises outside of the practice. Yeah. So you all know what spontaneous movement is, I assume. You all know what Zhefagong is. Yeah, okay. If you don't, very simply, it just means that the body starts to move of its own accord from the inside, ultimately. So the most mild version of it would be the swaying backwards and forwards that often happens in Qigong or circles, which is a Zhefagong related to the body not being able to find its central line. That's what it means. It can't find its central line. So when you see people bring their arms down and they do this with their body, that means they can't find the center. Yeah? Can't find the center, or this. Their body cannot find the center. It's like a pendulum swinging side to side. When the center is found, the body goes still again. Yeah? And then the qi will move in towards the dantian in the correct place. Now, that one's mild, shaking is mild, but then it can get more extreme. So if that reversal is quite strong, it can turn into, I'm faking it obviously, but something like that with the arm. it can get strong, or something like this, or this, yeah? Something like that, or whatever, like some kind of Vietnam War experiment gone wrong, something like that, some kind of sort of twitch left over in the body, right? Now, I get it a little bit actually, and so to me it's not that much of a problem, and I've got a slight reversal, ever so mild, about half a centimetre along, just because I think I told you I've got to bone this out on my neck that I'm too lazy to deal with because I don't care. So consequently, it just gives a little twitch every now and then, just as a Qi moves to that area, just do a little dunk with my head to the left. And maybe you've seen it on camera. Very occasionally, my head just does a little like that. And it's about once every sort of 15 to 20 minutes if I'm practicing. It's just a dunk as the Qi goes past that area in time with that circulation. And I could fix it really easily, but I just can't be bothered because it's not causing a problem and I'm too busy and I'd have to get someone to put the bone back in. So it's really no big deal. Like, it's no big deal. I'm not worried about it. But if somebody has a reversal that is happening all the time, it would be more like this. Like, that's bad. And that would be happening while they're walking to the local shops as well, or whatever. So if that's happening all of the time while people are just living their daily lives, I consider that's a proper Qi reversal. That's Chu Pian proper. Yeah, that's the first time I would consider it an actual issue that needs dealing with. Yeah, anything beyond that I'm okay with. But I have a large spectrum of what's acceptable, essentially, with regards to Chu Pian. So before we do some practice, do you understand that okay? Do you understand Chu Pian? Yeah? Okay. So, who's going to get it? The blood one, essentially, soaked in sweat. The blood one is going to be people, the rare one, that the blood, it's going to be someone that's already got it there. So it's going to be someone with serious heart problems, or it's going to be somebody with tumours in certain parts of the body, or somebody that has a hemorrhage. Anyway, it's that kind of thing. That pattern's already there. With regards to Qi reversals on the inside, it will happen to people who cannot sync. So the acid reflux and the regurgitation and the anxiety is people that cannot sync. So it's going to be the Qua not active and the chest not released, and it's going to be the Dantian not strong enough. The magnet of the Dantian is not strong enough. When the Dantian is built, it will draw everything back down to that place anyway. Who is going to get the reversal in the channels? It's going to be same kind of people that have a lack of syncing, a lack of Dantian, and also people that use forced Zefagong. Forced Zefagong, yeah, so forced. What's going to force Zefagong, or spontaneous movements? There's some systems that force it by concentrating on acupuncture points. Okay, so there's systems, you might have seen some of them, where you concentrate on particular acupuncture points in sequence and it generates random movements from the inside. I would consider that a risky method because the concentrating on a point has the potential to create a reversal. So at that stage, it's difficult to know the difference between Zefagong and a reversal. So I'm very cautious of those kind of points where you focus on those points concentrated-wise. And then it's going to be people that overindulge in Zefagong, so they attach their excitement to it. Once you like something, it's there to stay. That's essentially going to be the case. So if something's happening and it's just whatever, it will come and it will go. Neutral. There is a great strength in apathy, which I'm actually going to get engraved on my gravestone, I think, because it's become my motto these days. But there's a great strength in apathy with regards to those kind of things that are taking place in Qigong. But if people get overly attached to it and excited by it, then the mind will reinforce that pattern. Okay, so then it can start to get stronger. It can take people a while to get out. So as much as anything, generally with those kind of people, they have to get bored of the movements. They have to get bored of them. So I just kind of let them have it and they will get bored. And once that excitement is severed from it, then they will start to move past it anyway. The third group is people that are very, very sick, very, very ill. Yeah. So that can be anything from extremely chronic exhaustion, okay, that's been really problematic, through to people with really extreme autoimmune conditions, through to really bad digestive things. I'm just thinking of examples of things I've seen. Just, like sort of real chronic long-term conditions people have had for a really long time. Sometimes what will happen is that will set off a Qi reversal within the body, a Qian. Now this is where the skill of the practitioner comes down to, because sometimes you have to make a decision, and sometimes I've had to talk with practitioners about this. But I would say be cautious of doing what I do. Be cautious of doing what I do, unless you feel you have a lot of experience or you have somebody that you can speak to. So for example, it looks like I'm pointing at God. I'm not talking about God. I mean essentially somebody higher up than me in the ladder of the lineage, someone who's alive that I can speak to for further guidance. If I'm unsure about something, I can push it up the line. Essentially, I can shirk responsibility upwards and gain guidance. And I think that's always something that's very, very useful. So with what I'm going to tell you now, just make sure you either have a lot of responsibility and experience, or you have someone that you can speak to who has more experience than you. I think that's wise. Take a consultation. Because sometimes with someone who's very sick, I will allow the Qi deviation, the Qi reversal to run. I will allow it to run. I will let it take its course. Sometimes I will treat people for it and I will get rid of it, and sometimes I will let it run. But I will speak to them and I'll let them know, look, this is going to run for a while. It's going to be inconvenient. But the reason it will need to run is because that mechanism of that Qi reversal will actually start to work on fixing the chronic condition, on fixing the illness. So then there is a ethical set of scales, right? What's more inconvenient? The long-term condition that the person has suffered with for the last 10 years, or going through this Qi reversal pattern where the body will have tremors and everything for quite some time while it tries to reconfigure, reboot the system to change the illness. Yeah, and you can see why there's difficulties there, right? To figure out which one you want to work with. So there's a conversation that has to be had with that person. But yeah, be careful of making those decisions unless you feel you understand what's going on with regards to the person. Yeah, that's having that. So do you understand that? Qian? Easy enough? Cool. Yeah, excellent. Qian's actually something that's easier for me to teach you in person. So one time what I'll do, maybe on a course, how to deal with it. I'll show you some exercise in a minute for Qian just to regulate it and return the Qi away from those reversals. Quite a simple practice. So let's look at those questions that popped up and then I will do some practice. Time is illusory. I'm not that worried about sticking to the schedule. It's infinite, isn't it? Cheryl, what do you recommend for Zhe Gong outside practice? Just about to show you. That's what we're going to do in a second. A long time ago I had this. I remember. Yes, I remember. Deborah, how can a Qi reversal fix a chronic condition? Okay, then I'll stop there with the questions. It's because, actually, I didn't explain that very well. It's because the Qi reversal can be an error in practice. It can be that. It can be an error in practice. So therefore something has switched direction. It can be anything from an emotional quality through a forced practice. There's a whole plethora of reasons why you have that Qi reversal. But it can also be because the body is trying to reset itself. It's trying to reset the body. It's like it's trying to reboot. It's like something that's just trying to turn on over and over again. So that Qi reversal can come from that as well. Yeah. So sometimes what needs to happen is there needs to be a decision on which kind of reversal it is. Can one use force, intention, visualization methods first and then switch to one more attention-based methods later, or will that not overcome the plateau? Like I think you mentioned, the external force can help build the foundation even for internal styles. I think I get the feeling you're asking about something very specific. So it's difficult for me to give a generic answer, but I'll try and give a generic answer. My generic answer would be having someone that did forceful methods when I was younger, quite a few of them, and then even the ones that I didn't damage myself with, the ones that just plateaued, rather than just switching from forced to attention, like changing, I had to then go backwards to unravel everything before I went on to the other methods. There's an undoing of the pattern that's there. So it's not a case, without knowing the specific example you're asking about, it's quite tricky, but I wouldn't want to use a forced method to plateau and then think, I've gone as far as I can, I'll just switch to attention. No, because you've built into your system all kinds of mechanisms that are restrictive, that are stopping, that need undoing. So almost every, even if it's not causing a physical problem, if I just after switching to that kind of method, you're going to have to step back. It's the same with anything. If I change from one martial art to another that are not in line with each other physically, I am going to have to unwind and undo some of the patterns I've built into my body from the other martial art. It's almost unavoidable. It's just why internal martial artists end up dropping external martial arts after a while, pretty much, because it's very difficult to make the two work together. And it's ultimately, it's the same with Qigong methods that are clashing. At some point, you're going to have to unravel the effect of one to do the other. It's a hard thing to hear, perhaps, because often people are doing lots of different methods. I know that's the nature of life. People, especially these days, do lots of different things. But there's a certain stage you get to, and I would never advise people not to do other things. That's up to them. I think it's your life. Do whatever you want to do. Whatever brings you joy and pleasure and variety in your existence, go for it. But if you go deep enough into the art, realistically, there will come a point where even your discernment will tell you, oh, okay, this thing and this thing are not working together. They're not leading to this result that I want. So then I've got a choice. I can either keep them both because I'm finding entertainment from them, and that's cool. If you like the variety, nothing wrong with that. Or one of them is going to have to go because it's getting in the way of the other thing. That process is there. And often when that thing's got rid of, there is a bit of unwinding to do. It's like you have to kind of let go of some of the causative chains that have been developed there in order to progress. Now, I know that can be tricky because most methods, most lineages, sorry, I'll overrun a bit. Is this okay if I talk a bit and then I overrun? I want to answer this in depth a little bit, yeah. Most methods, most lineages are broken, right? Like almost all of them are broken. They're snapped. They don't work. They're fucked is the technical term. And that has happened for various reasons. The reason they're broken is because, my opinion, because people have made errors at different times. Not the guys at the top, maybe not the guys here, but maybe a guy in the middle made an error in misunderstanding that got passed on. And if you have a lineage that's got many, many generations of people, well, people make mistakes, all of us. So therefore those things can happen. And the second thing is war. That's the second reason that lineages get broken, because lineages are normally, or used to be, upheld by men. Okay, it wasn't women. Remember, women, you weren't allowed in lineages because we lived in less enlightened times, ultimately. And even though people try to pretend that there was lineages that had a different exception, they didn't really. Everything, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Eastern, Western traditions, at some point women got a bad rap, okay, and weren't invited into traditions. So we have different times when only men held those lineages. And then wars happened, and who fights wars? Men. So then the men go off and they get killed. And then often what happens is you see during periods of war, you can almost line it up historically, methods from lineages get messed up. What should they have done? Taught women, because women didn't go off to war. And then the women could have preserved the lineage during that time. But hey ho, they didn't use that much forward thinking with what they were doing. So lineages tend to be a little bit broken. So what you'll find is even the cleanest lineage has gaps in it. So realistically, what happens is somebody who's very deeply searching, you'll end up looking for parallel lineages. Now, a parallel lineage isn't a clashing lineage, so therefore I can't replace the gaps in Taoism with Buddhism, no matter how many people try to. You can't replace the gaps in Buddhism with Hinduism. You can't replace the gaps in Hinduism with Taoism and any one of those three. And I can't replace it with Christianity. I can't replace it with definitely Hermetics. And I can't replace it with shamanism. I can't do it. I can't replace the parts from a different tradition, because much as people would like to think that that lovely quote that Lama says applies to your Taoist practice or your Hindu practice, it does not. And it'd be nice to think that Taoist phrase applies to that Buddhist practice. It does not, because while it might be wise, it's based on a different method. So, what you end up doing if you are a searcher and trying to work through a path is finding related lineages. So for myself, for example, I ended up staying within Northern Taoism for a long time. It wasn't enough for me to go Dragon Gate specifically, or something like this. It was Northern Taoism, okay? So because I knew that they had parallels within what they're doing that could help me navigate through that path until I got to a certain stage. But even then, even with that similarity, sometimes the methods clashed. And it took a huge amount of discernment over a long time and a serious amount of mistakes, I'll be honest, to figure out this thing is unhelpful, so this thing had to go. Now, the sheer amount of hours I've had to put into this is, I think, fair to say, I'm only 41, a lifelong so far obsession. I presume there's a few years left, but it's been ongoing, and all of that time has been not like farting around or doing a class on a Wednesday night. It's all the time. This is all I do. This is all I live. This is my entire life. It's all of my study. It's all of my mental energy. It's all of my travel. It's all of my finances, researching and finding these people. It's all I do. And even then, it still takes me a lot of effort to discern what method is problematic with another method. So the reason I'm telling you this is because what I'm saying is it's quite hard to see those clashes. So if you're not putting that much time and effort into it, it's going to be tricky. So there's going to be a point for all practitioners where sometimes something has to be let go of and it has to be unwound with regards to what it's done in your body if you want to do something else. Yeah. But the caveat to that is I don't think it's that bad, because I think that those errors and unwinding and letting go are also a part of the learning journey as well. I think you learn an awful lot from your errors as well as you do from just having the perfect method. I think you learn an awful lot from Qi deviations if you've ever experienced one, as long as you can sort it out. I think there's a lot of learning to be had from there as well. So maybe that was a long answer. I don't know if it helped or not, but I'm just trying to highlight some of the complexities within the path. So I don't know if that was useful or not. But without knowing the specific example, it would be hard to answer for sure. So let's do some practice. Seated again. I'm going to sit here in my sweat box in this couch that I am slowly rotting with sweat. I think I'm going to trash this couch by the time I get off. So, spine upright. So to reverse the Qi reversal. So what's the reversal of a Qi reversal? I don't know, the correction of a Qi reversal, I suppose. Qi reversal to fix a Qi reversal. So as always, we're just going to begin by settling the breath. Standard. Year 1, year 300 in your practice. Doesn't matter. Just beginning with 5 minutes. Just letting the breath just settle and anchor before we do anything else, to create a full stop and a pause between whatever you were doing before and what you're doing now, as much as anything else. Just a little gap. Little gap. Just let the body breathe. Hands can be on the knees, lap, or as always, I've given up being neat with you guys. I've taught you on Zoom enough now. I just sprawl my hands down, whatever you prefer. Just let the body breathe. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the hands up, or I'm probably going to disappear off the camera, aren't I? Okay, so my hands, essentially they're this way round, so the palms are facing each other, and my hands are just relaxed, very, very comfortable. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my elbows just higher than my shoulders. So my hands are just here, yeah, just so you can see. And I'm not back with so my scapula are pressed together. If I, in fact, do this, bring your scapula together, so bring your elbows back so they close a little bit, and then just relax the arms forwards till you get to a point where you just feel the scapula just kind of sit comfortably. So I'm at about 45 degrees out with my arms, for me personally, yeah? That's where my scapula sit. And then I just bring the elbows a little higher than the shoulders, hands facing here, and I'm very relaxed, super soft, yeah, super soft with the arms, not stretching, not trying to elasticate. And then what I'm going to do is I'll bring my arms down, but pretend they're up here, yeah, just so you can see my hands. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin the fingertips just in space, yeah, like they're just hanging, almost like when we hang the occiputs, when you drop the pelvis away from the head, yeah? So my fingertips are just there, and then I'm just going to drain all the flesh off of the bones first. Tai Chi people will find this very familiar, I'm sure. Just let all the flesh come down. It's just a mental exercise just to let all the flesh go, all the tension around the bones. Let it all drain off. Till it feels like your fingertips, it's going to sound a bit gross, but to me it feels like my fingertips are being peeled, almost. Or like someone's just pulling the fingernails back a little bit. Like it's like the bone just wants to come out of the flesh. You know what I mean? Like it's just pulling down away. I know that's a bit gross. So I'm just draining it all down first, all the flesh hanging off. Then I'm going to gently bring the mind down to the dantian. And then I want the tension from the fingers, everything from the fingers to drain down through the arms, through the inside of the body down to the dantian. So don't guide it or lead it. Some of you are now here with your arms. That would be a little bit low. Okay, there we go. And then it's not with intention, it's listening. And just relax away from the fingertips so everything is draining down to the dantian. I just breathe deep and let it drain. And I feel, I've done it before, so I can do it quite quick, might take you a bit longer. I feel something running. Essentially it's the energy in the nerves, just feels like it's running. And then I even feel it here on my chest, disappears a little bit here, and then it reappears here on my abdomen. It's draining down. I feel it. It's like fluid running. And all I'm doing is I'm relaxing away from the fingertips. And it's just letting everything drain down towards the dantian. Just letting it all drain down. Like fluid running down to the abdomen first. Just to bring it all towards the dantian and away from the extremities. We don't do it for very long because the tension that appears in your shoulders won't be a problem. But if somebody has a Qi reversal, they'll start doing this. Because the tension, the Qi will start buffering against the shoulder and the shoulders will start bobbing up and down. So we just let it all drain down through, and draining down. Just a little longer. Elbows above your shoulders. Most of your elbows are not above your shoulders. They're level with or lower than. Let it all drain. A little bit more, let that flesh go, but not the skeleton. Everything runs down the arms, down to the dantian. It'll take you a few times of practicing this, but for me, maybe you've got it already actually. I don't know. It took me a little while, maybe not you guys. But here, I feel it straight away. It's like something runs down, and then it's just collecting. Like this gets more dense in the abdomen. The Qi just runs down to there. Then what I do is I turn the hands around. Won't hold it for too long because of your shoulders. I just bring the Qi down, down, and then I go to the solar plexus, put the hands here. Okay, so to find the solar plexus, if I put my arms on my sides and then just bring my hands in level, so I got a horizontal line on my forearms, that's the point you want. Yeah, I rest the palms. Classically, it said males with right hand on the outside, females on the left, but personally, I think Gender's a social construct. Just go with what feels comfortable. And just breathe, whichever one feels comfortable for you, and just breathe into that space behind the hands. This is Zhongwan or Huang Ting, depending on which name you use, yellow court or the central granary. Brings everything into order, regulates directions. One of the most effective acupuncture points on the body for regulating directions, in my opinion, not just for digestive thing that it's often used for. Let the breath be long and slow. Just close your eyes and let your attention go into this space behind the hands. Then bring the hands down. Seal them into Tai Chi Mudra again. Place it low in the body. Mind to the Dantian. Just let the breath anchor low. Okay, now I'll separate the arms. Bring them around. So, above the crown, Lao Gong, other hand above Lao Gong. 1 inch between the head and the hand, 1 inch between each hand as well. So there's an inch gap, roughly. Don't have to measure it, yeah? Not here. Must be Lao Gong above Lao Gong. Center of the palm above the center of the palm. Because it's always tempting to do this, isn't it? But it's Lao Gong above Lao Gong, above the crown. First of all, just breathe. Put the mind on the dantian. And again, after a while, maybe not the first time you do it, maybe, depends how good you are, how much experience you've got, you'll actually feel something from the hands running through the middle of the body down to the dantian. It's like a line that goes down and the dantian gets pressured through the line of the body. This is just to reverse something through the middle of the body, through the chongmai, taking it all back down to the dantian. I don't push, I don't lead with the mind, just the hands here, Lao Gong facing down. Feel it, just runs down through and just goes into the abdomen. Then draw the hands down. So still with the gap, I move slow like I'm dragging something through the middle of the body, down the center line, down, then into Baiyuan. This position where the thumbs are touching. Just to contain the mind and the Qi and the dantian. Take a few deep breaths. Separate the hands. Put them together. Good knees. Eyes, temples, neck. Twist the spine. And then the head. Then across the chest. Really work the neck with someone that's had Qi Pian or Qi reversal. Really want to work it and stretch it. Because it always gets tight on people with those reversals. The line of the movement of Qi between the torso and the head through the neck always tends to stagnate if there's a reversal. Okay, so I'll carry on with that next time actually in a bit more detail, that sequence, but so that's a simple exercise to just return everything back to the dantian after there's been a reversal, whether it's like a one-off thing, like an acute thing that's a problem, or if someone has experienced it chronically. It can also be combined with the exercises I did at the start of the class, just revising that sealing of the Qi, putting the Qi in from the extremities, breathing down towards the Jing to stir it will also help with the reversal as well. The exercises why I did them at the beginning, those ones can help with it too. These kind of exercises, remember, Qigong is already huge. There's already a lot of exercises. These are, if you're using these, maybe what you want to do is practice them until they just become comfortable and you can make them work, and then you just make a note of them, and then they're kind of prescription things, right? They're not things you need to be doing every day. It was just a question I had from somebody on Monday, came after the course, like, how am I going to fit this in? Like, these are Qi deviation exercises, right? You don't need to be doing these every single day unless you have that particular Qi deviation. Otherwise, it would be like just taking every medicine just in case one of them deals with the condition, you know what I mean? So also your repertoire of things, which that doesn't sound good for you, does it? Also your repertoire of exercises will end up huge. It's already big enough. So these are the kind of things you do. What I would do with these is do them until they're committed to memory. And not perfect. It's okay to have notes to refer to if they're ones you haven't done in a while, but they commit them as best as you can to body memory. I might take a little bit of time, maybe a few weeks, just kind of do them consistently, get a feel for how they work, and then that's what they are. They're prescription exercises for when you get these kind of problems on the whole, yeah? Just maybe I didn't make that clear enough last time. And then, last couple of questions. And then do you know what? I'm going to have a shower. What you mentioned about when a practice is working very well, to then just stop, absorb, and let go. Would you sit in this situation if you're doing Qigong or Daoyin, or better to go to Wu Ji in those cases? If you're past the beginning stages, and it can be quite early, you know, like, I think after doing Wu Ji, say you've done Wu Ji, even if you've done quite a lot of it for, maybe you've stood for an hour even, or something like that, I still think it's quite useful actually to drop into a sitting position and then just absorb into the body, actually. I think that can be useful. But with regards to Qigong or Daoyin, yeah, because they're exercise rather than process-based, you probably still need to do them for a fair while before you did that. But still the same. If you feel like you're in it, it's your practice, feel it. You know what I mean? Like if you're in it and that process is going well and it's your practice, then yeah, just absorb your attention into it and gently sit down on the floor. I think that's okay. And kind of unrelated, but what does Buddhist Qigong alchemy tantra do then? It's Buddhism, but with alchemical methodology. Shouldn't this be an inherent clash? Well, I mean, there are systems that have been combined and put together, such as Buddhist Qigong, for sure. I mean, Buddhism's a weird thing anyway, remember? I know lots of you are Buddhists, but Buddhism is many, many different things, and there is Buddhism that's very close to Buddha's teachings, and then there's Buddhism that's adjusted a great deal by lamas and teachers and arahants and what have you within those traditions, and also just scholars and intellectuals. So there's all kinds of variations on Buddhism anyway. And Buddhism, just like any religion, it is a religion, even if we try to sometimes pretend it's not, it is a religion. Any religion that travels is always going to integrate with whatever the inherent or local religion is in that area. Only you have to look at Bali, at the weird sort of religion they have there, which is a weird mixture of like Buddhism, Hinduism and Satanism, as far as I can make out. I don't even know what they're doing. It's just a mix of everything. It's crazy with a bit of everything splattered in. I kind of like it, but it's definitely what happens is as traditions go, they integrate and mix with whatever's there. So then the question is, were the people that mixed it, were they skilled enough to understand the causation of doing so, or were they not? And in some case they were, and in which case we get interesting traditions. For example, some of the Buddhist Qigong methods are very, very good because they were very advanced practitioners who knew how to do such things. And in some cases they weren't. And I am going to go out on a limb here and say there's even some traditions, in my opinion, that are several generations old, several hundred years old, that I still think are flawed. I think they're flawed. But I don't think Buddhist Qigong is in that category, actually. I think there's some really good Buddhist Qigong, exceptional, that they put together, definitely. So, is it inherent clash? It depends on the skill of the practitioner that puts it together. I think that's it. It depends on that. Did they know what they were doing or did they not? And hopefully they did. There's some great Buddhist Qigong though. So some great stuff out there. Deborah, first hands above the head, I had head pain. Yeah, same as you had before, isn't it? If you raise your hands up, you get head pain, I remember from last time. After bring them down, get lots of head jerks, then hip jerks. Yeah, that sounds about right. Then Lao Gong above the head pain again. All this happened a lot before. Yeah, right. I mean, it sounds like you're going to have to be a little careful with this, because obviously when you raise your hands, it's causing the problem. But actually, I think you might need to get it all dropped down anyway. I mean, the very fact you're getting the head jerks and then the hip jerks as it's going down. But I think probably for you, It's difficult without me actually seeing you, but just from what you're saying and my sense of what you need, I think actually more like the exercises we did at the start of this class combined with the yin breathing would be helpful for you more than anything else, because while these ones will be good for you with the hands up, I just don't want you to go through the headaches really. I don't want anyone to suffer. So those other practices I think will be really good for you, and they should help it through. Yeah, I think. Should you do these exercises only if you have Qi Pian for a couple of weeks, drop everything else until the symptoms are gone? Do the exercise once or several times a day? I think do 2 or 3 times a day, because they're only short, aren't they? They're like 20 minutes, half hour at the most for these to do. I think a couple of times a day. 2 or 3 times a day would be my prescription for somebody. Once in the morning, once in the evening. I'll tell you a little secret. Probably shouldn't tell you. I often diagnose people or prescribe people to do morning and evening, and that's simply do it when you wake up, do it when you go to sleep. And people always think it's because it's special times. It's not. It's because some people are better in the morning and some people are better in the evening, and it's quite hard to figure out which category they fall into. So I just tell them to do both. Do it when they wake up and do it before you go to sleep, and you'll get the result of the exercise. Probably shouldn't tell you my little shortcoming, should I? But if you do it twice a day, that should be enough. Should be enough. If you do hours and hours, it will just create more of a reversal, because you'll overdo it. Jen, curious, when one is getting an acupuncture treatment, do you recommend relaxing or calm abiding or something else? Oh, I see, when you're receiving it. I think that depends on the practitioner, because sometimes they'll get you to do different things. So for some treatments, I will ask people just to chill out, be quiet, be happy, and just have a rest, fall asleep if you can. For other treatments, I'll get them to focus on specific points, like listen to the feeling at this needle. And then for some treatments, I will get them to do a particular breathing or mental exercise. So I'll have different things I ask people to do. So I would actually just ask the individual practitioner, because I don't know what their advice would be. But if you're not sure and you don't know what to do, just relax and do nothing. Yeah, just doze off if you can, unless they give you an instruction. All right then guys, I'll see you in a little bit. I'll see you in a little while.